Well, good evening, everybody. We are on LaRuelist Café. I see we have some folks who have been patiently waiting for us. We thank you for coming on tonight. Tonight is a special show. Normally, we stream on Monday nights with issues, but there is a lot happening throughout our country right now as it relates to voting rights, being disenfranchised from voting, all of the redistricting that's happening throughout the country to make sure that people, the black and brown folks, are not able to vote. We have the Congressional Black Caucus. We don't know how many people will be left in the Congressional Black Caucus um, after November. There is a lot going on. And we have someone, a guest here tonight, who is an assemblywoman in New Jersey. Those of you who are not in New Jersey watching this, she is in what we call the Fighting 15th Legislative District in the state of New Jersey. And she has been fighting for years to make sure that every single vote counts. She has been engaged in trying to get the poll workers to be paid more money. She's been doing a lot of recruiting, trying to make sure that we get more folks engaged in this whole civic exercise of voting. And now she is the sponsor of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. A lot is happening as it relates to voting in the state of New Jersey and throughout this country. So we're going to have that conversation tonight. As you can see right now, normally when I sign on, I'm really upbeat and cheery. Today, I'm in a fighting mode. I'm not as cheery as I have been in some of the other shows because, I'm, as most of you know, I'm 75 years old. Next month, if I wake up, I'll be 76. I was 15 years old when the Voting Rights Act was enacted into law at the federal level. And I remember how excited my parents were when we no longer had to worry about people who look like me paying poll taxes, counting jelly beans, answering all kinds of ridiculous questions throughout this country to be able to just exercise that right to vote. And now that we have gotten the right to vote throughout the country, and then we end up with a Supreme Court, a clueless Supreme Court that has absolutely no hesitation at all and just yanking away the rights of people. We're going to have that conversation tonight. Before we have that conversation, we're going to bring on my co-pilot here, the producer of LaRuelist Café. We're going to bring on Madam Jeannine Frisby. You got to unmute yourself. You're looking good, but we got to hear you
Hey
too.
everyone, hey everyone, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome to LaRuelist Cafe. We hope that you are ready for this very, very important conversation that we're going to have here tonight. It's very serious, it's very important, and because it's so important, we want you to pause for 1 second. Just 1 second. Go ahead, scroll down to on your Facebook page or your social network page, and wherever you see that button called share, we want to make sure that you are sharing this live stream with as many people as possible because this message, we need everyone to be at the table to hear about this because this is about our rights, this is about our future, this is about our children. So welcome to the Rulers Cafe. We look forward to seeing all you guys and join us. Bye
Thank you,
guys.
Shanique. Thank you so much. And now we are going to have the guest of the hour, none other than my assemblywoman. It's not often I get to have my assemblywoman on this show. How are you doing tonight? We need to unmute you, or you can unmute you.
I did it. I'm
You
unmuted.
did it. You
Yes,
always
yes.
do it. How are you doing,
And
Assemblywoman?
listen, I thank you so much for elevating this conversation about voting rights. To your point, we thought this was something of the past. We thought this was something that was just happening in the early 60s and 50s. Never did I think 61 years later that we would be still fighting to protect the right to vote for citizens, residents, people that want to be a part of this democracy. It's absolutely horrible what's happening. I was on a call. I got a call the other day from Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman. She called me and she was saying that the Black Congressional Caucus, in addition, they had the Legislative Black Caucus members on. And I'm the chair of the New Jersey Legislative Black Caucus. And so I jumped on the call and I heard this conversation that was happening in Alabama, the stripping of the rights. I heard what was happening in New Orleans. And when I tell you, it was, I just could not believe that this was happening in 2026, that a president is literally trying to steal and strip away the rights of people to vote. And I said, you know what? We have to step up. In New Jersey, I have been fighting for the John R. Lewis Voter Empowerment Act for the past 4 years. And we've talked about this. And finally, we were able this year to get it passed in the assembly. But the fight isn't over. We know that it has to go through the Senate in order to get it to the governor's desk. But all of this, is pushing back on this Trump administration that wants to nationalize our elections here in New Jersey. And we're saying, no, we don't want this. We do a great job here in New Jersey. We don't want to have you review our records. This is just wrong and dangerous in so many ways. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation because we need to really elevate what's happening. And I think, when we look at it, Sister Jeannine, it's not about a D or an R when you go fill up your gas. It's not about a D or R when you go into the grocery store. It's not a D or an R when you go into the pharmacy to pick up your medicine. These are all issues that impact everybody. And it's just reckless what this president is doing and how the economic impact that he's having. And how about the other day he said, I don't care about the American people economy. He said that.
Exactly. He actually said it.
He said that.
Yes, he said it.
Who should you care about? And this is where I think the people elevate and rise and say, we've been to the marches, we've done the rallies, we've been to the visuals, we've done all of that. And so I hear people, they walk away and they say, now what? And I say, this is your time. This is the now what. You show up
Now what?
and you vote. You vote. You vote for someone that has your interest at heart. You vote for someone that's going to push back on what's happening there. You're going to vote for someone that's going to fight for you. And that's what this is about. We're fighting and we're pushing back on all of this craziness that's coming out of Washington right now. The Trump administration, child, I swear they do drugs up there. This is insane. What's happening? There's no diplomacy. There's no democracy. They're not playing by the rules. And I say, you know what? Let's fight fire with fire. You want to change the rules? Guess what? We know how to change the rules too, and we're going to fight back. And
we're going to get to that changing the rules in a second because I do want to talk about that. Because first of all, I want to talk a little bit about you. Okay. How long have you been in the legislature? And tell me some of the issues that you have been fighting for over the last several years. How long have you been in the legislature?
So this is my 5th term, 8th year that I've been in the legislature. And I fought for everything from child tax credits to earned income tax credits. I fought for and won for the medical debt, to give families medical debt relief because just because you get sick doesn't mean that you should have to lose your home or go bankrupt. I've been fighting for poll workers to increase, the fees. I've been watching, the stuff that's going on with our board of elections, our superintendents. And I guess just because, there's always been this protection, I like to protect, it's just who I am, protecting vulnerable people. I fight for prescription drugs, trying to keep those healthcare costs down. I fight for education dollars. I got into public advocacy, as I call it. A lot of people say, oh, you politicians. I say, I'm a public advocate. I'm an activist. I'm out here fighting for the people. And special education is a passion. And by trade, I'm a social caseworker. And I know who to write. I know who to call. I know what meetings to show up to. I know the teachers. I know the principals and the superintendents. And still, I had problems trying to get access to information. And when I reached out to my local official, and when I say he was just dismissive, he acted like he never received the letters. He didn't want to even be, this is pre-COVID, didn't want to shake my hand, just didn't want to acknowledge the fact that I was there to ask for help. And instead of just getting angry, I said, V, you can't just be angry about this. You have to do something. And I said, you know what? I'm going to run. I'm going to talk to the people in the community, and I'm going to run for city council. And that's exactly what I did. I ran for city council and I won. And I served there for 7.5 years with honor and distinction, making sure that we brought resources back to the community. I started the finance committee for us to be able to look at the transitional aid that we receive and the other funding that we receive, and how Trenton specifically starts off in the red because of all of the state property that takes up our revenue, our potential revenue sources. So that was how I got started. When Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman served in the General Assembly, she went to Congress. It created this ripple effect. Liz Moyle went on to be the state treasurer, and I filled the vacancy. And so that to me was always a sign that I was supposed to be doing more. I used to say on city council, Sister LaRue, I used to say, we got to go to the state and get the money. We got to go get the money. And now I'm here, I'm saying the same thing. We got to go get the money, and we need to go
get the money.
Federal and get the money as well. We have to, and we have to speak up and talk about, what these resources look like. I fight hard for education dollars. I fight hard for our unions. I've gotten paid sick leave, paid family leave. I'm a big supporter of, like I said, education and community colleges. They always get cut every single year, and I'm always fighting back to put those dollars back in there. Beautiful. And we have to think about, the supportive services after COVID. It wasn't just, tuition. We need to make sure we had supportive services for students. There's a lot of mental health services, just supports to keep students not just in the classroom, but when they leave. There's a huge food insecurity on campuses. Like I said, supportive services for tutoring, just trying to make sure that you don't just go, but you graduate from college. And that could be a 2-year, and that could be a 2-year, 4-year, or even trade schools. I also did a lot of work around that with my partner, Anthony Varelli. I was trying to get trade dollars, workforce development dollars. All these things help with the workforce, because there's nothing like wanting to start a new career and you don't have the resources. And so, coming from the social work background, job developer, I'm always thinking about ways of doing that. And so that's just a little bit about me and how I got into this work. But I'm a people person. If I hit the lottery and I had $1 billion, I would still do the same thing. I would always want to remove barriers and help people get access to resources and services.
Thank you for that, because I think it's important for folks to understand your walk. And we're going to come back to the Voting Rights Act in a second. But
Mhm.
you've hit on a lot of areas. And one area that you've hit on, I know that in the city of Trenton, we're going to have a Black Maternal Health Center
Yes.
here in the city of Trenton. And for the viewers, because of the work you have done in the area of healthcare, that clinic is going to bear your name.
Yes.
We are so happy about that.
Oh, well,
Tell us
thank you.
about yes, tell me about your work, because you had your own situation with healthcare that really it looked as though it was based on the color of your skin. And I think it's a story that the viewers should actually hear about.
Yeah. So, so I suffer from Crohn's disease. I'm healthy. I have episodes every now and then. And so again, I'm gonna highlight why we need Medicare for all. People need health insurance. So I was sick and I came home from the hospital, and I had to sign up to get some infusions at home. And I had a conversation with the nurse the night before. I told her where I lived at, in between the train station and the high school, and she's going to come. Everything was fine. Well, the next day, it was around Easter. I remember this. It was around Easter. And I had some people in the yard. They were cutting the trees, putting down some mulch, and I'm waiting. And so she doesn't come. And so maybe she's supposed to come at 10. So maybe 10:30. I called, and so she didn't answer the phone. So I called back to the nurse's headquarters, and I said, "Listen, I'm waiting for Nurse Tammy to come," and she never showed up. And so she said, "Oh, I said I thought I saw her across the street," and I said I went outside, and I'm waving, trying to say, "Hey, this is my house. Don't want to be confused." And the car pulled away. And so when I'm this, I said, I'm telling this to the supervisor, and she said, "Oh no, she felt uncomfortable about the people in the yard." And I said, "What?" I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "The people in the yard, you mean the landscapers? The people that's cutting my Japanese maple tree and putting down mulch? It's Easter. I'm getting ready for my family to come." And she said yes. And so I've said a few curse words, and because I had to
I
catch
bet you
myself.
did.
And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I said, "I'm sorry. But I'm going to need you to get me a nurse here today. I just got out of the hospital. I need this infusion." And I said, "This is just unacceptable." And so I told her, I said, "I don't know who you have to talk to, but you're going to have to talk to somebody. But somebody going to come to my house." I said, "This
So
is
think about that. I mean, this
about it."
is and for the viewers, folks got to understand your home is gorgeous.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
home is absolutely gorgeous. Your lawn is manicured, and she sees a person of color
Right.
landscaping in your front yard, and automatically she's afraid to get out of the car and
Right.
come in and treat you.
Right.
And so, if this can happen to a legislator, why do
I
we
just,
need
I,
maternal health for Black
right.
women?
And I think and what really infuriated me is because I immediately thought about the 3 senior buildings I have down the street. So we have people sitting outside all the time. You telling me Miss Betty not going to get seen? Miss Snell not going to get seen? Mr. Crawford isn't going to get seen? He's not going to be able to have somebody come in and take care of them? What? Oh no. I said, "Listen, you're gonna find somebody, and then we're gonna figure out who the patient advocate is and who I'm gonna write to, because this is unacceptable." And now we're talking about maternal health. So this is just at home care. With maternal health, you need a nurse that's going to come in. You might have some lactation. They're going to see how you're doing postpartum, all of these things, and I just said, this isn't right. What can
Right.
I do? And what do people do? And I filed a complaint with the New Jersey Division of Civil Rights. I documented everything. I had
Good for
my
you.
phone log. I wrote a report. Look, and Google is awesome. I Google who was the president of the company, who was the supervisor, who's the regional manager. If you could be CC'd, you were CC'd. I CC'd everybody. But even in this space, I think about cultural competency, you know, even, people that may be Muslim, who may have, they have the men and the women are separate? How do we make sure that you respect my culture? How do you make sure that you when you come into my home, if I ask you to take your shoes off, or if there is a, certain food or things that I can't have, that you won't, turn your nose up at, or you don't look down upon me? So we passed legislation to really address all of these things. But for us with Black maternal health, the numbers are just so low. And sometimes I think we take on more than we should about trying to just manage and get through. And I said, hell no, we're not just going to manage and get through. We're going to speak up. We're going to do the research. We're going to show the data, and we're going to keep on fighting. We want to put doulas in the hospital. We want midwives. We want to have access. And I like what the Salvation and Social Justice says about putting Black birthing back into our hands. These things aren't taking away from any profession. Is really bringing back that cultural competency, is bringing back the closeness, that you can have with your doula or with your midwife, and making sure that we as a state recognize that. And so I have some awesome colleagues that I work with in the assembly, from Assemblywoman Spate to Assemblywoman Timberlake and Assemblywoman Sumter, that started us down this journey, and Assemblywoman McKnight. There was Assemblywoman Carter. All of us, are trying to figure out how can we do more and elevate Black women and Black maternal health. And I tell you, we have done a lot of great work, and I look forward to doing even more with our new governor, Mikey Sherrill.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I wanted our viewers to have that background, because one of the things that you have been known as since you've been in the legislature as the people's champion. I love it. Every time I hear you being introduced, it's the people's champion. And you've been fighting for us for a long time on so many other fronts. Now, let me ask you, you mentioned something that we've got to fight fire with fire. We've got to back on the voting rights. What do you mean by that? Because, throughout the country, people are talking about redistricting, and folks are all upset, for years, we were so against gerrymandering because we're like, we can't do this. But we are in a situation right now. We've got to fight fire with fire. Yes. And it's all about the numbers right now. So what do you mean by that? I'd like to hear your
So
opinion.
that's exactly it. When we talk about this Trump administration isn't playing by any rules. They have created this onslaught of just trying to cut out Congressman Clyburn. It's like, what? We trying to just cut people out just blatantly. We calling it out, stopping elections in the middle. It's just awful. I feel like New Jersey has to speak up and fight for our voters. And so, we're talking about the Voting Rights Act. We have to have people to be able to get to the polls. We have to be able to say, you're not going to just come here and we're going to wait and see. I know that Governor Mikey Sherrill said she's going to think about it, but I don't think this is a waiting situation. I think this is a ticking time bomb, and New Jersey has to protect our voting rights. We have to protect our redistricting. And you think about it, we're not far away. We're supposed to come up on 2030. That's only a couple of years away. I've already put a bill in for the census to be funded, like I did the last time. But we need to have a proactive approach. The leadership really needs to get together, and we need to figure out what that strategy looks like before the federal administration tries to do something else crazy that we got to go to court for and fight.
And yesterday, as you know, I was honored by the State Federation of Democratic Women.
Congratulations.
And one of the things, thank you, and you had some people in the room also. We had a whole group of folks there from Mercer County. And one of the things that really warmed my heart was to see the woman who's leading that group, a white woman, to stand at the mic and talk about, this is everybody's fight right now.
Oh, yes.
I mean, there is definitely, right now, there is a war. Donald Trump has declared a war on black and brown people. He's declared a war on women. He's
Mm-hmm.
declared a war on the LGBTQIA
Yep.
community. And so this is, and so it's time for us as a people to start having some really candid conversations with each other. Because,
Right.
Assemblywoman, there are people who don't realize in the state of New Jersey, well, a lot of folks, we're coming up on June and we're going to celebrate Juneteenth, and we
Mm-hmm.
talk about what happened in Galveston,
Mm-hmm.
Texas. But the truth of the matter is, New Jersey was the last state in the union to give up slavery. A lot
Right.
of people don't understand that. So as we celebrate Juneteenth, there were still about 16 black people in the state of New Jersey who were slaves. And
Mm-hmm.
it took the election of a governor who said, this is wrong. We are going to pass this 13th Amendment. We're going to pass the 14th Amendment.
Right.
And so just because we're in the North, it doesn't mean that we also don't have these issues to deal with. So I'm glad that you're looking at all of the options on the table, because we got to fight for the numbers in Congress.
We have to fight so that we can turn Congress blue. This isn't the time to be on the sidelines. This isn't the time to talk about, oh, we leave it up to somebody else. This is our fight. I think about, my mom and, the fight, the blood, the sweat, the tears, that fight has already happened. And so here we have a President Trump, and the administration that literally are saying that they want to hold on to power because they know what they're doing is wrong. They know cutting Medicaid and Medicare and taking food out of children's mouths. Who does that? And it's all to fund these wars that's happening out here. And so I am clear on what the message is and how we can combat this. And we just everywhere I go, I'm passionate about this because the writing is on the wall. He says it. Everything he says, he is doing. He is not exaggerating. He's not kidding when he says he doesn't care about the American people. He's telling
Right.
the truth. And I'm going to say this, Jeannine, it's not about a D or an R. When you go into
It's
that
not.
grocery store, it's not a D or an R. When you're trying to get that prescription that went from 0 to 25 to now $200, $300, $500, that's not a D or an R. This is direct things that he's doing. You can't, I heard it the other day for Black History Month, the kids in Florida couldn't even use the word Black history or their funding was going to get cut.
Right.
All
Right.
this DEI, we can't talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. Why? Why?
Right.
It came into effect because people were being suppressed. They weren't
So,
funding us. And so this
so
is the way we tried to come back and combat it. But now, all of a sudden, quote unquote, it's a bad thing.
absolutely. And I want to point out a couple things too before we wind down. I see Mark. Mark, listen, I hear you. Understand my taxes are off the chart. Mark is saying we got to combat the taxes in New Jersey, and
Absolutely.
you are spot on. And Mark, not trying to put you off, we are going to address that in another show. This show we actually said we were going to talk about saving democracy as it relates to the Voting Rights Act and as it relates to redistricting and what happened with the Supreme Court. But I'm all with you, brother. I mean, trust me, not just property taxes, also the federal income tax, all of that. We've
Right.
got to look at it and we've got to address it. Now, Assemblywoman, I want to absolutely, and Mark, hang with us. We come on every Monday night with all types of issues we raise, and I love it when folks come on and raise questions. So, a little birdie out there, it's not just a little birdie because I know it's true. You're running for something, and we don't want this to be a campaign show, but I don't want you to get off of here without at least our mentioning the fact, because I have watched you move from being on council and then going to the assembly, and just watching how you have grown into all of these jobs, and you're so passionate about everything. Tell me now you want to go down to DC and really take the fight to the fight.
Yeah.
Tell me about your running for Congress.
Yes, so I am. I'm running for Congress. We have an amazing Congresswoman, Bonnie Watson Coleman, who's retiring. And I want to take this fight to Washington. You know, the one thing that I can't stand is a bully or somebody that is just trying to take advantage of the people. We have working people, working families that are trying to survive and to do the best that they can. And this administration is just trying to strip everything away for their own corporate greed, for their own self-interest. And so that for me is just the icing on the cake. I've done the rituals, I've done the rallies, I've gone to the No Kings, I've marched, I protested, and still my now what is next is to take this fight to Washington. I want to go and fight for the people of New Jersey, for the resources that we deserve. You know, Mark talked about, being, what are we going to do for New Jersey and the taxes? New Jersey is a donor state. We send millions of dollars to Texas and West Virginia. Why? We have our own road projects. We have our own schools we should be funding. We have our own bridges repair and infrastructures that we need to be taken care of. And I look at systems and say, just because we did it this way doesn't mean it needs to stay. And I want to go and fight. You know, we have to look at oversight. We have to investigate. And if there's enough evidence to bring charges to indict this president, then that's what we're going to do. I'm going to speak up and call a spade a spade. If this is you corrupt, you corrupt. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's fight for it. And then send it over to the Senate side. They have their job to do. But we have a job in Congress to make sure that we fund projects appropriately. We can fund and defund. And so that's some of the stuff that I've learned in the legislature. I serve on budget. I serve on appropriations. I'm chair of education. I see how these dollars come and see how they go to other places. I feel like I'm the most qualified person because I have these legislative experiences. I have real life experiences as a social worker. I know about trauma. I know about working families. I know about housing affordability. You know, you have a 2-person household. They want to buy a home. $500,000 for a starter home is ridiculous. And then to put on top of that another 40, 50-year mortgage, no, that's unheard of. We should be fighting to make sure that if I work in Hopewell, that I should be able to live in Hopewell too. They should have housing for everybody. And I think that's where we get distracted sometimes away from the real issues that working families are fighting for. And I want to take that fight to Washington. I want to bring the power back to the people because I'm your representative. This is what I've been fighting for my whole career. And I want to continue to do that at the federal level.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. We are winding down this show right now. Folks, here. This, as I told you, this was an add on show tonight because we felt it was critical that we hear from the woman who is fighting for this John R. Lewis Act. And I'm so glad that you made time in your busy schedule tonight to come on and talk about these issues. And one of the things that I just want to say to all of you tonight, you know, we appreciate here at LaRuelist Cafe that you all keep signing on and joining us. As these shows continue to run, you know, we only see like 20, 30 people on at a time. But let me tell you, within 2 to 3 days, 3,000 people are watching these shows and hearing these issues. We thank you all for hanging with us on this. We have had Desiree Peterkin Bell. We had Senator Timberlake. We've had the public defender, Salidi. We now have our wonderful Assemblywoman who's come on. And tomorrow night, we're going to have the very gracious, very elegant First Lady of the largest city in the state of New Jersey, there in Newark, First Lady Linda Baraka. And one of the things that I want you all to understand, that if you want to come on as a guest yourself, sometimes there are viewers who are saying, I have something I want to say. I want to come on to LaRuelist Cafe. I have something I want to say. You don't have to be any big mucky muck to come on here. We're trying to reach the people. We're trying to lift up issues that folks want to hear about. So please go onto my Facebook page, do a little post. I don't block people on my Facebook page. We want you to say, okay, Jeannine LaRue, I want to come on LaRuelist Cafe. I'm going to DM you and I'm going to direct message you and tell you what I want to talk about. We want to hear from you. So there you got it. Here we are, another successful program with LaRuelist Cafe. We thank you, madam. Any closing words you want to say before we take it home?
I just want to thank you for this opportunity to come on and talk about the Voting Rights Act bill and how we really need to have people remember we have a very important election coming up on June the 2nd, but we need to protect our democracy. And so the bill number is A4083 on the Assembly side and S3009 on the Senate side. And so our democracy is under attack right now. I've said it before, we don't need nationalization of our elections. I want to make New Jersey a model for the federal administration for us to recodify what we have, but to protect what we have also. And I can only do that with you. And so I say, make sure you contact the Senate president for the two to post.
And what's his name? What's the Senate president's name?
Senate President Nick Scutari, who I know is supportive of the bill. We just need it posted and heard.
Yes, and he might even be watching tonight. So yes. Nick Scutari, you need to contact him. It is the John R. Lewis Act. He's supportive. We just need to get the bill up. And then who is your speaker?
Oh, Speaker Craig Coughlin. So we passed it on the Assembly side. We're going to do it on the Senate side now. And we just need you to all call, text, email, blow them up so that we can get it heard, so we can get it to the governor's desk before the Trump administration can do any more harm or danger to us.
Thank you so much. New Jersey is always ahead of the curve.
Yes.
And we thank you, madam, for coming on with us. And thank you to all the viewers who've been hanging in with us for the last 45, 46 minutes. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend and kick tomorrow off with a bang. We hope you have a good week. Thank you very much.